All right, this is Steve. I'm here with my friend Savannah, and this is kind of part two of some work we're doing together that we're sharing with everybody. And it's kind of an experiment. We're having fun, really trying to quantify the law of attraction or manifesting or whatever you want. A lot of times people read about this and they're excited about this, and they try and see if they can be more creative and create what they want in their life. But sometimes people are like, well, am I doing it right? I don't know if I'm doing it right. Have I done it long enough? And you just kind of hope you're doing it right and hope something shows up to tell you that you're doing it right. And sometimes what can be very helpful is if you have some feedback along the way of like, oh, see, it's working. Keep going, if you're driving somewhere in your car, it's nice to know, well, how far have we gone? How much more do we have to go? Are we on the right road, or did we get a detoured or something like that? And so what we're trying to do is kind of quantify that process, because sometimes you can be super close and you might quit. But you wouldn't quit your trip if you're only a mile away. You're like, oh, keep going, we're almost there. But if you thought, man, we might have been totally going in the wrong direction, you just give up because you're like, it's not ever going to happen. So does that make sense? Do you think that's a good description, Savannah?
Yeah, absolutely. Just with regards to things that I wrote down a list, like the kind of man that I wanted, I got it a couple of times. I was like, "Ooh, actually, maybe he does." I had to be more specific, so I was more specific. I ended up finding another man,
Yeah.
and that I think I really want to keep.
Yeah.
And I made a big move cross continents. A kind of a risky move, just having a lot of finances, and just trusting that the law, that things are going to work out and everything. And they have, and I still have some blocks where I need to open up more paths, but I definitely have achieved a lot.
Yeah.
Just still financially, I need to, get it together.
Got it. Yeah. So you have a track record of being pretty good at this, but you're not sure if you're still making progress in this new area, right? So what kind of feedback, what comments do you have on the first session we did together?
Yeah, I just kept thinking about the fact that you picked up, about where I'll kind of freeze like a deer in headlights.
Yeah.
That has happened me genuinely a lot in my life, where I'll just
Confusion, I think, is what we called it. Confusion,
I like when I came back from France after living in France for a year, and I had good conversational French, and someone just like asked me something, and I just whoever it was in front of, I just said this like the dumbest thing, like what someone that doesn't know how to speak French is like, things like that. And just with the dancing, just performance, I was in a performance group, and I never ended up actually performing with them, unfortunately, because I guess you could call it stage fright. But just even in the practices, when we actually had to put it all together, I would be like, oh my God, there's people watching, even though it's my friend, the director, or whatever.
Yeah.
Thing, and just being really embarrassed, because genuinely. So I have blocks still, and even with the art, I have blocks still because I haven't painted since our last session. Although I'm trying to focus on getting nanny work, because I started getting some really good job offers lately, and I know I have the really good skills to mind children, and that will help me to create some finances for buying supplies and hopefully a garden studio eventually outside. So
Yeah. Here's an idea for you. You should tell people you're going to nanny their kids and get their kids to speak with an Irish accent, and you could charge extra for that.
yeah, I know my accent's not that even. It's not that strong even. My American boyfriend, he's like, oh my God, you can't say that. That's American. Don't say that. Don't become Americanized. Bit stronger, yeah.
People will pay extra for that,
People love us, but people love the Irish. The Americans love the Irish.
Awesome. So, let's do this. We're going to go and go back to our notes here. and see what we did before. If I can go up here and make this a little bigger so everyone can see it.
Want me to read it?
So let's just see this here. Oh, hold on, what's this?
I can read the affirmation if you want.
Yeah, go ahead and do that.
The process I'm going through is meaningful. I forgive myself for being ineffable. Who I am and what I am gifted to do brings meaning. I accept God's stubborn belief in my future. I am fueled and empowered by bliss.
So how consistent were you with saying this affirmation and also visualizing what we're doing?
So just generally whenever I thought of it, which, maybe every day, but not 3 times a day. I wasn't that good. But I really genuinely believe this, and I believe that the process I am going through is meaningful. Like my partner lost his wife through cancer 3 years ago. So it's just, we're blending a family. The kids are still, we're all getting to know each other. The process is very meaningful,
Yeah.
And I genuinely do believe this, and I am genuinely fueled and empowered by bliss, and beautiful things, and you got that affirmation really good. So I don't even need to say it very often because I genuinely do believe this.
Excellent. So, well, let me pray real quick, and we'll move forward. God, I just thank you for wisdom and insight to be a blessing to Savannah and to manifest more of your kingdom in her life. So give me permission to do this for you.
I give permission.
Okay. So as Savannah, so first of all, I'm testing for Savannah. These are her results. I'm going to say, my name is Savannah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go recheck these things we did before. The percentage of heart messages reaching. I'm going to make sure we haven't disconnected anywhere in here, and then see how far along the process we are. So I'm going to say, as Savannah, the percentage of heart messages reaching my organs is 60% or more, 80% or more, 90% or more, 85%, 80%. So I would say what we'll do is we'll change the text color, and then I'll just say, then you can tell the new net. So I would say that's 80%. So then we go to the wholehearted thing. We ended at 95%. Let's see if that's still there. As Savannah, my degree of wholeheartedness includes 60% or more, includes 80% or more, includes 90% or more, includes 95% or more, is 90%. So most of these have stayed pretty good. Still like 90%. We're going to go through this alignment issues. As Savannah, I am okay. I'm okay with this. Yes. I'm ready, willing, and able. Yes. It's safe for me. No. Okay. For some reason, we're back to a no on the safe for me part, which is definitely something we need to.
So maybe because I'm still scared, I'm not going to make money from the art, so I'm focused on my finances.
Yeah, well, let's just be neutral and we'll see what comes up. It's good for me. I believe I can honor it. I'm worthy of it. I can be supported by others in it. So those are all good. So still the safe for me is back to being a no. All right, so let me ask this. I'm wondering what exactly is not safe. Does that make sense? So, because we have kind of a more broad range. Making art is not safe. No, that's not it. Making art is safe. Okay. This process is safe. Money is safe. Yes. So forgiving myself is safe. Forgiving myself is not safe. So Forgiving myself for safe. So it's this part here. It's this forgiving yourself for being ineffable.
Okay.
So I think you're probably still very hard on yourself for not having super clarity on who you are and where you're going, what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Very recently, I was hearing Anthony Robbins interview Tim Ferriss, and it was very interesting. One thing they both agreed on was that when they were younger, they were so into very, very specific goals with specific timelines, and exactly how they were going to do it. And one thing they both agreed on is that they no longer really believe in that so much. What they do believe is kind of the big picture, kind of like, here, we're going to go to this mountain, right? But what they've allowed themselves to do is to be much more open that things can change and that different things can show up in their life, and that the path and the process could be much different than they initially thought. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, so just something to think about. So I'm going to say, no, I'm just going to put this in the notes on being ineffable. All right. So, I'll tell you a very interesting story. I was raised more evangelical Christian, okay? And my mom tells this story of one day she was in church, and the person who was speaking that day was kind of hardcore evangelist, right? So we're talking about somebody who is very, very into proselytizing in a big way. Does that make sense?
Into what?
Into being very forward about telling people about their Christian faith, that that's the really thing that you must do every day, okay? So that's kind of who is talking, okay?
Yeah.
And she left that church service feeling bad, as if maybe she had never done anything with her life, right? Because that wasn't who she was. That was not what she did on a regular basis. And she said, she kind of prayed. She kind of asked God, have I ever done anything for you? Right? And it was very interesting. She said the whole next week, for either a week or 10 days, every single day, someone would call her who she hadn't talked to in a while. And they would have a conversation. And at some point in the conversation, this person who had called her would say, oh, by the way, Kathy, this common friend of ours years ago told me that something you told them once made all the difference in their life. Right? So for an entire week, every day, someone told her that she had made a difference in someone's life, and she didn't even know it. So anyways, kind of cool. So I'm going to say, as Savannah, making me feel it's not safe to be ineffable is a spiritual root. Spiritual root. Trapped emotion. A spiritual root. Yes. It's a vow. Judgment. An offense. So not an offense. It is an offense. So being offended, again, is just feeling that someone or something is making your life more difficult, taking away from you. So as Savannah, I'm offended at being ineffable. I'm offended at I'm offended at my circumstances. I'm offended at a particular person. I'm offended at the process. I'm offended at the process of becoming an artist. All right, I'm offended. So what I would say is kind of that you're offended at the process of becoming an artist. All right, because let me say this, because this process is described because I feel this process is something on the map, something on the charts. Hold on a second here. Where'd my document go? All right, so we're going to go into the body code real quick here and pull a description from, oops, hold on a second. I feel this process of being an artist is something in A1 through 5, A2, A4, anger, bitterness, guilt, makes you feel guilty. This process of becoming an artist is described as something in A4 of anger, bitterness, guilt. There's a lot of guilt associated with. So, do you ever feel that people kind of, how to describe it? You know, a lot of times what parents will do to their kids when their kids want to become an artist, they like put guilt on them. Oh, you shouldn't have an art degree. You shouldn't try and do this. You need to get a real job, right?
Yeah, well, I have had absolutely huge judgment and difficulties and sufferings because of my mother.
Yeah.
Life hell, literally. She has made my life hell.
So, so would it be accurate to say that your mom puts a lot of guilt on you for the process that you're trying to?
Yes.
That makes sense?
Absolutely full of guilt. She tries to put huge amounts of guilt. That's her little weapon.
Yeah. Do you ever, you know, here's a technique you might use. You can ask her when she's trying to put guilt on her, tell her, are you trying to make me feel guilty?
Actually, Stephen, I actually can't talk to her anymore.
Ah, that is a huge bummer.
Yeah.
So this would be easy, nice to get rid of if you didn't feel any guilt for following your heart. Does that make sense? Let's see. I'm going to say there's an underlying trapped emotion connected to this. It's an A1 through 5, A1, A3, A5. So we're going to go to a trapped emotion in A5 of blaming, dread, fear, horror, peeved, blaming. So a trapped emotion of blaming, not a trapped emotion of blaming. Okay. So a trapped emotion of blaming, I'm blaming the process, blaming kind of blaming my goals or my heart or kind of the way I'm wired. So what I would say is we're going to release connected to this being vulnerable to guilt is a trapped emotion of blaming. And it's kind of like, you know, you are wired this way. Does that make sense? You're an artist, you know. Yeah. You're never going to be an accountant, right? But the way you're built and wired and what gets you excited has also caused you problems. Does that make sense?
I have always genuinely followed my heart, and I have encountered huge judgment because.
Okay, so we're just going to, let me just say this. All right, I'm just going to reset this trapped emotion for you real quick. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Reset that. We're ready to reset this. So I wouldn't say yet that we're ready to reset this being offended at the process of becoming an artist. We have another trapped emotion connected to this. Yes. This trapped emotion is in A. Yes. A1, 3, or 5. A2. A4. A6 of humiliation, jealousy, longing, not longing. This is a trapped emotion of longing. And release it. So we're going to release a trapped emotion of longing. And occasionally artists and performers can be a little dramatic, right? So what we're talking about is, what we're talking a bit about is longing is like kind of being super aware of what you really want, but you can't quite ever get there, There's a lot of slight artistic drama in that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So reset that for you. Okay. So I'm just going to reset that for you real quick. 1, 3, 4, and 5. All right. So we've reset that. And I'm going to say, as Savannah, we can release this offense. All right. So I guess part of it is you're going to need to kind of embrace the process of becoming an artist, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And realize that this process doesn't have the ability or authority to make you feel a certain way. Does that make sense?
But people along the way.
What's that?
People can do that along the way.
Yeah, but it's still going to be your decision on whether or not you let other people decide how you feel, right? Because if you get offended at someone for putting guilt on you, like your mom putting guilt on you, or for saying things, or of not being supported, really what you have to understand is when you become offended, you're making a conscious decision to give other people power over you. Okay. And it's a decision. Most people make that an unconscious decision to do that, but you have to make a conscious decision to take that power back from people. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So, if, I don't know if I ever read that story to you about Wild Bill from Wuppertal, the guy in the Nazi concentration camp.
Yes. I saw your video on that. It was very good.
Yeah, so, he was a guy who, here his whole family had just been machine gunned by Nazis. And right then and there, he made a very deliberate decision to walk in love towards every single person he met. And as a result, he spent 6 years in a concentration camp without the least evidence, physically or emotionally, that, Nazis had been trying to slowly kill him for 6 years,
Yeah.
So...
And I kind of do believe that my mother has blocked me a lot, and I have allowed her to. So
yeah. So let's make a decision to take that power back from her and the process today. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So just say this with me. Say, I let go.
I let go
of any offense.
Any offense.
Against the process of becoming an artist.
The process of becoming an artist.
And people's responses to me becoming an artist.
People's responses to me becoming an artist.
All right. Say, I'm responsible for how I feel.
I'm responsible for how I feel.
And I make a decision to walk in love towards everyone.
Make a decision to walk in love towards everyone.
And to embrace my process in becoming an artist.
Embrace my process in becoming an artist.
and to enjoy every step of the way.
Enjoy every step of the way.
Right. So, so this safe part, okay. We're safe. Okay. I think we're good on that. I'm going to say, as Savannah, in terms of going deep, subconsciously connecting this, we're at 80% or more, 100%. So we're still good on that. You know, like we had mentioned before, I think you've done a lot of emotion code work with a bunch of other people. And in some of these areas, it really shows up, you know. So in terms of going high, we're at 60% or more, 80% or more, 65% or more, 60%. So for some reason we start off, we need to redo this one here. And I'm just gonna go to, hold on, I'm gonna put this up here. There we go. So I don't know why this, so you ever hear Dr. Joe Dispenza talk much?
No.
He is really, really excellent, has some tremendous insight. This is a guy who, he got hit and he was in San Diego doing a triathlon. He was a chiropractor and a car hit him at 50 miles an hour. And multiple doctors told him he had to have this huge, nasty back surgery, and he decided against it and spent like 3 months meditating and visualizing his back as being completely whole, and he has no issues anymore. But in terms of connecting to, like, you know, a higher power, you know, you can call it kind of whatever you want, you know, in terms of that there is a higher power, God, whatever, who cares for you and wants to help you. Okay. One of the really good insights I got from him is he says he studied people who've had a lot of spontaneous, miraculous healings and remissions, okay, from things that should just not just disappear. Does that make sense? Yes. And he says one of the major commonalities these people have, and this is how he described it. He said, all of them, to a certain degree, it's like as if they understand they're riding on the back of a giant, and all they really need to do is whisper in the giant's ear what they actually need. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
In other words, that there is tremendous resources available for you for free, just for the asking. Does that make sense? You know, and my own mother, who had breast lymphatic and uterine cancer, one of the things that she clicked for her before her cancer disappeared was that she was going for a walk one night and she looked up at the moon, and she believed so strongly of God's provision for her that she said, you know what, the moon would literally have to fall from the sky for me not to get my healing, that it was that set in stone, that much of an accomplished thing that was done for her. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So let's actually see, we're going to look at this issue, and we're going to see if we can just, instead of doing a lot of testing and making it complicated, maybe we can just figure out a good affirmation that you could regularly do that would fix this. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay. So let's try this. Say this with me. Just say, God,
I
accept your unconditional love for me.
I accept your unconditional love for me.
As your daughter.
As your daughter.
I believe. That everything you have is mine.
Everything you have is mine.
All right. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I'd like lots of gold.
Well, here's the very interesting thing. You know, there's an interesting scripture and it says, it says, if God didn't withhold his own son, wouldn't he freely give you all things pertaining to life and godliness? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we think, oh, I don't know if God wants me to have this. But you think, okay, well, time out. If there was ever something that God would have held back, it would have been giving his own son to improve the relationship between God and man. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And if he gave that, well, it wouldn't make any sense that he would withhold other things. You follow me?
I wouldn't give my son.
Yeah, there you go. So we're going to say, as Savannah, my high percentage is 60% or more. 95% or more, 90%. So what I would say is that's probably a good thing to meditate on and confess on a regular basis. Does that make sense?
Okay. Part exactly, just that God loves me, and
exactly, that God loves you, has unconditional love for you, and has abundant provision for you. You know, it's the however you want to think about it, but the basic is that you are riding on the back of a giant, and you merely need to whisper what you want, right? Okay. There's just a probably the simplest way to describe it is 2 words. Yes, or it's not 2 words, but yes and thank you, right?
Okay.
We don't need to complicate it any more than that. So, so I'm going to say, as Savannah, this thing I'm trying to manifest is 10% or more accomplished, 20% or more accomplished, 30% or more accomplished, 25% or more accomplished. So let's say we're maybe at 25% here. And I'm also going to say, this affirmation one more time. You meditate on this 1 or more times a day, 2 or more times a day. So one thing to think about is it's not just saying this affirmation, but the real effectiveness in it comes from feeling it and living in it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes.
So as you say this affirmation and you're meditating on it, you have to figure out in what way you can actually, how would you feel, right? What would it look like around you if, you were a successful artist selling your art? Does that make sense?
Yes.
What, have you ever sold art before? Did I lose you? Hello?
Yeah. Yes, I sold artwork before, yes.
Okay. And how did that feel?
It felt really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually offered 900 euros by my brother's friend for one painting, and I don't know why I said no. And I think I didn't feel like it was worth it,
Yeah, there you go.
It was like, what, are you crazy? Like, just, yeah.
So that's a very good thing to, all right. So let's say this. So you have individual paintings?
Yeah, I have one on the wall here behind me.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And how is it for sale?
I guess so.
You guess so. How much do you want for it?
It's a really big one. Actually, I would want 1,000 for that one, because now it has a home on the wall, and I mean, it takes a long time. When I thought later on, years later, I thought how many hours I put into it, because even just going back to it and adding another layer, it's like takes a lot out of me, you know, and well, I don't know why, but anyway, you know, and then someone said just count the hours that you actually put in and like pay yourself per hour. And then I started going, okay, well, my time is worth the money, you know. So yeah, I mean, like I wouldn't sell it now because that's a perfect place for that. So I wouldn't sell it for anything less than $1,000 or euros or wherever you live.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: how much is your time worth per hour?
Okay, so now I've started to get $25 an hour just in the last week to do nanny work.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm worth that because I know I'm very loving towards the children. I know that they're getting like top quality, you know, that I'm, you know, I have experience with children. I'm a mother, and, you know, they're just getting all around, you know, you know, I'm smart and responsible and professional, all those things. So
Yeah.
I'm worth that, you know. And actually probably a lot more because I have 5 years of third level education, and I put in, you know, I didn't get paid to study, and I did 5 years. And, you know, when I really break it down, I actually am worth a lot more than that.
Yeah. So, how much are you worth per hour as an artist?
So I don't know. Well, if I was like basically maybe just to, I don't know, maybe stay with what well, I don't really know.
I think we've landed on an interesting thing we have to work through, huh?
Right. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, let me ask you this. Would people prefer to buy expensive art or cheap art?
Yeah, well, see, the thing is, you know, with photographers, especially photographers, I have a lot of artist friends, you know, going through my life, and the average person doesn't really appreciate art as much as, you know, obviously the artists themselves. Like, for example, they're always asking photographers to do free work, and it's a huge problem. And actually with dancers as well, a huge problem. People are always asking them to give their work for free.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they
here,
they
pause
don't.
right there and let me ask you this. Is that an issue with the market or an issue with the artist attracting that type of person?
I kind of think it is a market. I think people don't really, they think, you know, they don't understand the skill. And, you know, just to even to take, like, I take good photographs, and it's like most people just, they don't really recognize that, you know, it takes a lot of skill and knowledge, you know, like composition and, you know, balancing colors, and just so there, you know, so much, you know, lighting, and that most people just don't really know about or don't appreciate that the knowledge behind it.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of artists are undervalued,
Well,
especially.
do you think you're the only artist who's confused on how much they're worth?
Yeah, no, like, yeah.
No. You know, my input is that it has a lot to do with deciding what your art is actually worth. And, you know, really, I'm not an artist. I'm not huge into art. But if I look around and observe what people are paying for art, like, holy crap. Like, someone draws cubes and they get like $30 million for it. You know, it's like, wow, you know. So I don't think there is a shortage of people who are interested in spending money on art. There's probably a shortage in artists who feel that their work is worth it. If
Right.
that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know how those artists do it, the ones with the yeah.
Yeah, well, how many of them their stuff isn't worth anything until after they're dead and out of the way? You know, right? It's crazy. So that, you know, I think that's an important thing for you to do, is to decide what you're really worth as an artist. Okay. Because that's something you don't want to be ineffable about, right?
Right.
You know, you don't want to put your art up for like the lowest bidder, right? Having people want discounts on it as if you're like shopping at Walmart or some ridiculous thing. So I used to live in Aspen, Colorado, and I worked in a bike shop. Okay. And we would take some of these bikes and purposely add things onto them to make them more expensive. Okay. And the reason we did that is because certain people would walk into the bike shop and they would look at the price tags and they would simply choose the one with the highest price tag. Okay. So there's plenty of people out there who they may not know a lot about art, but they want to have art. And the only way they know if something is nice art is if it's more expensive. Okay.
Yes, I learned that in marketing class as well, as in just branding in general. If you brand it at a higher level, yes, absolutely agree.
Exactly. So you already understand that from an educational aspect, and you're able to apply it maybe to other products, goods, and services. But you need to work on starting to apply that to yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know why it's so hard, because it's something like it's personal, or it's raw, or it's I don't know why it's your creativity. It's like, it feels like it's really close to their core, so you're kind of vulnerable in so it is a vulnerable thing, and I don't know why exactly it is, but maybe because
let's figure this out real quick. I'm going to say, as Savannah, making it hard for me to charge for my art is a spiritual root. Trapped emotion, my trapped emotion, inherited. So an inherited trapped emotion in A. So we'll go over here in A1 through 5, A2, A4, an inherited trapped emotion of anger, bitterness, guilt, hatred, resentment. Weird. It is an inherited trapped emotion of resentment. It's not. It is. Okay, resentment of... Okay, we'll say this is from mom, from dad, dad's dad, just dad. So what I'm going to say is an inherited trapped emotion of resentment from dad. I'm curious as to what resentment has to do with charging for your art. Let's say this. What I resent is something on the map. Yes. On the top of the map. Yes. And so what I'm doing here is I'm using this document here. So it's on the top of the map in green, in blue, blue God view, blue life view, blue emotion, serenity, reverence, understanding. My resentment of understanding. Resentment of not understanding. Resentment of I resent that other people understand how things work. I resent that other people understand how to make money. Don't. Okay, so kind of what I would say is we're going to release this, but it has to do with resent that other people know how to make money and I don't. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Does that seem accurate? I'm happy to toss it if it doesn't.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I'm not. Yeah, could be. But no, from my dad though, because he doesn't even. He's a very spiritual person who like it was a lecture in math, and he, even when he did, like, people asked him to do grinds, which is like extra tutoring, private tutoring, he wouldn't charge them because he was doing it like as a spiritual service.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, let me say this. Resent that I have to charge money for it.
But yeah, but he would also have a lot of guilt about like spending money on a new car or something. So
Yeah. We'll just reset that for you real quick here. 1, 3, 4, and 5. All right. So we've reset that. So
my son, he tends to like give up really easily. If he's doing something, he just like, oh, I can't do it, like, and he'll give up. Well, he's not now, but he was for a period, a good like length of time. He would just give up really easily. I don't know what. So maybe something tied in there as well. I don't know.
Got it. So here's an analogy I want to give to you, okay? One thing that often will happen, you know, I've lived, for example, I've lived in San Francisco before, which is pretty expensive. Then I moved from San Francisco to Aspen, Colorado, where the real estate was just like nuts, right? In 1988, when I first lived there, the average single family home was $1.2 million in Aspen, and it's probably doubled or tripled since then. But one thing to understand is that if you owned a home, okay, and someone came and offered you 3 times what you thought it was worth, okay, would you take that offer, or would you tell them it was worth less?
I would take the offer.
Take the offer, right? So if someone offers you $5,000 for your painting on the wall, are you going to take the offer?
Yes, now I will, because I've educated myself in how to receive. Whereas years ago, I wasn't capable of receiving, you know. I had to.
Let me see. We have another trapped emotion connected to this.
If you want to hand me $1 million right now, Steve, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So we're going to see if there's maybe another spiritual root connected to this. Okay. So vow, judgment. I judge myself. I judge others. Judge my art. So I judge my art to be something on the map of consciousness. Yes. In the top, in yellow, in orange, in red God view, red life view. I judge my art to be this, evil, miserable. I judge that my art makes me miserable, that it is miserable. Judgment around my art, and the judgment is miserable. So the art is, so judgment has to do with art, and the judgment's miserable, but it's not a judgment that the art is miserable or that makes you miserable. Selling my art makes me miserable.
Like, well, miserable because I haven't been creating. Like, I haven't been creating. I haven't been, so my skills are going down, you know, like, it's how many years now? I mean, it's nearly 10 years since I finished college.
So how much time do you spend going out and trying to market or sell your art?
Well, none at years. I mean, I did a few years ago. I was in some exhibitions locally in Ireland, and I found the ones that were being sold were the ones that they recognized, the local people recognized they were painting of a specific place, and mine were more tropical, actually. But I always knew I was supposed to live in a more tropical place.
Yeah. So here's a suggestion for you. Okay. I would say that you do not like selling and marketing your own art, correct?
Because other people's stuff. I can market, for other people, no problem.
So I have a simple solution for you. What I would do is working on attracting someone who wants to sell your art for you. Does that make sense?
Right. Okay.
You're like
one girl who kind of wants to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so just say this with me. Say, I let go. Of any judgment that selling my art has to make me miserable.
Selling my art has to make me miserable.
Right. Just say this. Say, I judge. That other people can do what I don't want to for me. I guess we'll say it that way.
Other people can do what I don't want to do for me.
Right. Does that make sense?
And I probably, if I had like, say 20 paintings, like really good, and I'd done them, I put like a lot of effort in, I think I could sell them. But it's just like, I don't know. It's just like, yeah, I'll get there.
So here's my suggestion, okay? Take a little sticky note. Decide on a price for this painting on the wall that's really would make you really happy and kind of surprised and be like, wow, that's awesome, right? And take a little sticky note, write sold on it, and write the price you sold it for, and put it on the painting, and every time you go by.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
Right, you feel it. You're like, and realize that someone else sold it for you, right?
Well, I don't know. Will I turn it so you can see it again? But
yeah.
Can you see it, Stephen?
Yeah, keep talking while you're videoing it. Then you'll come up on screen.
Okay. Oh, it's an automatic thing you've got going on.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm over here. It's on the wall. It's actually right by the Christmas tree. Let me open the blinds here a little bit better. But I was actually thinking that it's not even finished yet. I might add some like kind of like more illuminescent colors, more like glow, maybe even glow in the dark. I was kind of thinking kind of glow in the dark because it's an underwater scene. Can you see it?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay, I don't know how good you can see it or anything, but there's the fish here. But I'm not even totally finished it, to be honest. I've more detail that I can put in there. So I was doing it over at a friend's house, and we don't have a lot of space here, so I just put it up on the wall for the moment. But I'm gonna add a little bit extra to I think maybe some like neon colors,
Yeah. Well, here, so how do you like that suggestion to decide a price that would surprise you, right?
Yes.
Write sold on it, put it on the painting, and know that someone else went out of their way to market and sell it for you, and they call you up and they're like, hey, Savannah, I sold your painting. You're like, wow, I didn't even have to work on it. Does that make sense?
Yes, that would be great. Awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
And the kids, if the kids see the note on it, they'll be like, oh, yay! And they'll get really excited. And I'll be like, well, it's not true yet, but it might be. Right?
Just say, it is true, it hasn't shown up yet.
Because like my partner's daughter, she's like saying to him, when are you going to marry her? Because she needs all your money so she can buy me stuff.
I love it. I love that you have an advocate in your corner,
Always on his case.
No dad can resist the constant nagging of his daughter to get him to do something. And so you have the absolute best advocate in your corner for this process.
Absolutely. I'm very lucky.
Awesome. So just say this, say my art sells itself for a surprisingly nice amount.
Surprisingly great amount.
And I can focus on what I love to do.
I can focus on what I love to do.
Which is making the art.
The art.
All right. Does that make sense? So just because other artists have a hard time selling their art and people don't want to pay them what it's worth doesn't mean that you have to have a hard time selling your art, right?
Right. Yeah, sure.
Here's a quick analogy before we're done today. Understanding how God views you is key to many things in life. Okay. And as an artist, think about this. I can look at that painting and go, oh, it looks wonderful. But you look at it and you're like, oh, it's missing this. I'm going to add that, tweak it, right? Does that make sense? Someone who's not as discerning as you wouldn't notice the mistakes. Are you following me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So think about this, is that God has the most discerning eye and the highest standards anywhere, of course. Does that make sense? And God made you, mm-hmm. And on the seventh day he rested, not because he was tired, but because it was finished. Mm-hmm. And he said, oh, it's very good. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So whenever you look at your painting and you think you have more to do, realize that God looks at you and doesn't see anything that needs to be improved or changed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So anyways.
Subject.
So let's say this, we're at 99% or more. 35%. So I think that improved a bit how close we are to actually doing this. And now just focus on your affirmation and consistently what it feels like to be someone who sells their art consistently. Okay.
Yes.
And do some nice visual stuff around the house that you can see it, like, oh, it's sold, cool,
Yes.
In fact, here's another idea. Do you have any blank canvas?
I do.
Okay. Take a blank piece of canvas and also put sold on it for a very nice price, because someone has commissioned you to actually paint something for them and has paid you ahead of time.
That sounds amazing. Like, actually, I was in Carmel by the Sea, and obviously, I'm sure you've been there. There's so many galleries, so much art, and, my partner, he's never been exposed to art, so I was able to expose him to all of that, and he was just kind of wowed by, he never really thought about it before or whatever. So we were talking to one of the artists in the galleries, and she was even saying, oh, I think we all kind of came to the conclusion I should maybe do some landscapes of Ireland as well, but me, I would put more contemporary touch to it, like not the kind of, I would, I have a vision of what I want to do, and I know, I think that they would sell really well, actually, the ones of Ireland. But then I was also thinking about, I have a really strong conviction to truth, and just truth matters, and I follow a lot of the change, Edward Snowden. I support him, and I don't want to but I think he's an amazing hero and everything. And I was kind of like, I wonder, is there anything I could do to help causes like that, or in general what's happening in North Dakota, or the people that are standing up against the greed and all of that stuff. So I do have a lot of subjects that I could explore. And so thank you for spending this time anyway, helping me.
You're welcome. One thing, when I saw your painting, I thought to myself, how perfect that you end up living where you're living, because that painting will sell where you live. Does that make sense?
Like, yeah, because I love, honestly, like, I love, like, doing water, a lot of, like, old and, you know, palm trees. I never, even in Ireland, I was not drawing Irish things. But now when they asked, well, when my partner also said, because he's absolutely in love with the whole Ireland thing, you know, and he's like, oh, you can do some of Ireland. And I'm like, well, I'll be making the skies less gray. Or okay, the green is quite vibrant, but I'll probably be like exaggerating the saturation of the colors even more.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Well, you have any other questions for me?
No, just knowing that things are getting cleared is gonna, you know, help bring me closer to my goals.
Yeah. So, just to recap, make sure that you're very clear on that this process of becoming an artist, that it doesn't make you vulnerable to other people's opinions or judgments or anything like that, that's just, it doesn't matter. Okay. And also that the actual marketing process of this, someone else can do it for you, but you know, just focus on being pleasantly surprised and being able to receive money for your art. That you're like, oh, just be. Here's the way to put it: get good at accepting people's valuation of your art, which is higher than you might expect. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And just go, okay, it's like a lot of times when women are beautiful and someone gives them a compliment, they're like, oh no, my butt's too big, or my nose is too large. It's like they dismiss it instead of just going, okay, yes, thank you.
True.
So awesome. Well, let me end the recording here real quick. If I can figure this out. Sure. I think I stopped the recording. I'm not sure. Hold on a second here. Stop recording. There we go.